All right. Good morning to those of you on the East Coast. Good morning also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, co creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from. As you well know, every Saturday we try to bring you a weekly podcast known as This Week in Pop Culture, giving you the rundown in the world of pop culture, whether it's film and TV, sports, news, local news that is, or even tech and things of the like. We try to bring you guys up to speed. And of course, I'm not going to be alone in talking about these said topics. So without further ado, I want to welcome back to the show my co host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, AKA Spills. What's going on, sir?
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy to see you guys. The playoffs have started, so I'm getting ready to go get me a couple of cervezas and pray for these Commanders to pull through against the hated Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
For sure, for sure, for sure. But before we dive into excuse me, before we dive into the stories this week, I did want to send prayers and thoughts to those in Southern California. As you guys will know, they did have wildfires that were happening over the course of this week. And of course, it caused unparalleled destruction. So I wanted to send thoughts and prayers to those of you out there in Southern Cal who are, contending and dealing with that. I know we had, some friends to the show who have been on here before who they themselves are, have are dealing with that right now. So I wanted to send thoughts and prayers out to them as well. But yeah, we just wanted to get that out of the way before we dive in. As you saw in the title, we will be talking about the 2025 edition of the Consumer Electronics Show, the tech show that happens in Vegas on an annual basis every January. Excited to dive into that, but we will be doing that to close off the show because we did have some other things that went down this week, not just in film and TV, but also in the world of sports. So, Spillman, shall we dive in?
Let's get it.
All right, bet. So, we're going to go first into the world of sports for you guys because we did have some firings, unfortunately, that did happen this week, some shakeups in the world of the NFL. And to be more specific in talking about those said firings in our segment known as Sports Cooler Talk, I wanted to be able to discuss the firings of Antonio Pierce as well as Doug Pederson, who both received the boot this past week. Pederson, who led the Jacksonville Jaguars to a 4-13 record this season, was let go on Monday per the owner, Shad Khan. In his tenure as the Jags head coach, Pederson recorded a 22 and 29 record over 3 seasons, posting 9-8 records in each of his first 2 seasons, with an AFC South title and a playoff win in 2022. Spillman, what are your thoughts on Peterson's firing this week? Was it warranted? And do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, I do think that this was not as big of a surprise as many may feel
Sure.
with some personnel moves, let's call them, in the NFL.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
The Jaguars really regressed in the last year. They've had their quarterback of the future allegedly with Trevor Lawrence. He seemed to take a big step back. But going 4-13, you can't. That's unexcusable, especially if you've been there a few years. I think that this first year they made the playoffs. To go four and
Yeah.
13 that's just a level of futility that most don't get rewarded for. So that's a
Yeah.
bit frustrating for sure, but understandable why they've moved on from him. The Jaguars regress back to their normal um, losing ways, which is sad, but it's unfortunate to see. Um, Peterson seemed to have lost the locker room very early on. There were
Mhm.
lots of games that they were close in that they could not close the deal on. So that attention to detail and everything was not as good as it could have been. Again, they were in the playoffs and surprisingly beat the Chargers in 2022, but that was 2 years ago. You can't continue to keep your job for that thing. So it's unfortunate,
Sure.
but I just think that this was a bad year for them, and a new coach was due. You'd like to see what they can do in the draft, but there's a lot of skill positions that they need to draft for new receivers and running backs, more on the defensive end as well. So we'll see.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, and I'll take it a step further in that a lot of times, which we'll dive into with the other firing that happened this week, because Peterson had it wasn't a situation in which he was only there for a season where he had to kind of prove himself within that season. He had 3 seasons, so there was an opportunity there to really try to establish a culture, as you said, because you said that you were talking about the idea of a winning culture versus a losing culture, and it, the writing was on the wall, as you said too. There had been talk of them changing coaches and letting him go. 4-13 is not really going to help your case in being able to remain as a coach. And add to the fact, I'll add this extra added detail. Add to the fact that have you set a record for the franchise of having the largest margin of defeat for the franchise.
Hmm.
So, and I'll go into more detail about that. So, on November 17th, the Jacksonville Jaguars lost 52-6 to the Detroit Lions. 46-point margin of defeat. It stands as the most in the club's history. So just let that settle in. Of
And Jacksonville's not a great franchise. To set the record is crazy.
you want to set a record that is something that's positive. Maybe you have the largest margin of victory, or you have the longest winning streak. But to say that you managed to have the largest margin of defeat in the club's history, that's like, yeah, that's not going to help your case. And I feel like that was the final nail in that coffin of that decision that was made. So yeah, insane. And as I said, 3 years. It's not like the person which we want to talk about now, that you weren't given any time to be able to establish, the culture that you wanted, a winning culture with your franchise. Now on to Pierce, who similarly, this is weird, but similarly led the Las Vegas Raiders to a 4-13 record as well. However, unlike Pederson, his ousting on Tuesday came only after one full season as the franchise's head coach. He was initially promoted from the linebackers coach to the interim head coach when owner Mark Davis fired coach Josh McDaniels and general manager Dave Ziegler after less than 2 full seasons on Halloween night back in 2023. During that time, the Raiders went 5-4 under Pierce to finish out 2023, including 4-2 in the AFC West with the 63-21 blowout of the Chargers to finish 8-9 overall. Spillman, you hear this news of not only having that similar record, which is this weird parallel, but unlike Pederson, only having one full season to be able to kind of establish himself. I do have thoughts on that as to why that is, but I'll punt it over to you first.
I think that they're trying to look for one of the marquee coaches. Antonio Pierce was a first-time head coach. He had not
That
been a coach
exactly
previously.
correct. Yes.
I think that they moved on a little fast from him. They may have someone in mind, but I feel like they didn't get a quarterback. Um, they didn't have a lot of the things that you generally try to go into
Yeah.
a season with the Raiders this year. But honestly, the Raiders have been kind of a mess of a franchise since 2000. It's been 25 years of futility for that organization.
Yeah.
So to me, I think the not Al Davis. I don't think his Al Davis's son, the new owner. Um,
Yeah. Mark Davis is the son of
Mark Davis. That's
the
his
former
name.
owner. Yeah,
I don't trust Mark Davis as a football mind. He hasn't shown that he makes good decisions. I thought that Antonio Pierce, being a guy that actually had been in the locker room before, had been between the lines, and was known as a no nonsense football guy, would have been a good fit for them. But sometimes these things just don't work out. Sad to see him go this way, but I think that the Raiders are just on a coach and quarterback carousel right now. It's going to be a new quarterback and a new coach to start the year, and they're probably going to be bad again next year. So, it's sad to see Antonio not get a full chance with a actual quarterback that he selected. There was news that they were trying to get Jaden Daniels, which looked like a good idea. Looking at what Jaden Daniels did this year for my Washington Commanders. That's right.
right. Yeah.
So I just, unfortunately, this is a league that if you do not have a quarterback, you're not gonna win a lot of games unless you have like an all-time defense. You have to have a defense that's like a defense with a nickname. If you don't have a defense with a nickname that
Right,
the
right,
Raiders
right.
do not have, you need
Right, yeah.
the Temple of Boom or something like that, or
But
the
I'm
Iron
saying
Curtain.
your offense still has to be serviceable. Like
Sure.
even if you have an all-time great defense, I mean, we've seen it before where teams have been able to get by with their defense, but their offense still has to be solid. It has to be serviceable. It can't, be lacking.
Yeah.
So,
So that's just
I mean,
rough to see. I always liked Antonio Pierce. I felt like he was a great guy. He was with the Giants for a long time.
yeah, yeah, former
He was great
former
on
player.
TV. I think he was great on TV, but unfortunately, he's just not where they need him to be for this organization. I feel like again, Mark Davis just moved on very fast. I think that he doesn't have the answers, so he's going to blame everyone else instead of, doing the things that you have to do. There are going to be times where you're bad. Sadly, they probably have the number. They'll probably have a high draft pick this year. They could have got a quarterback this year, but that'll be one of those things.
Well, I'll say this, and I'll close it with something that you'll find pretty amusing, Spillman. But I'll
Hmm.
start first. Yeah, I think you know where I'm going with this,
Oh no,
but
here we go.
but, but I'll start first by just saying, so the Raiders, they lost what, 34-20 to the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday to
Hmm.
finish a season that included a 10-game losing streak,
You can't do
which
that.
is the longest losing streak since 2014 when they opened 0-10. So add to the fact, like you said, that I feel like the quick decision was made, and you mentioned this, is due to the fact that there wasn't any prior experience. At least with Pederson, he has a track record of coaching, so you're going to give him a little more leeway. But when we're talking about Pierce, he had never coached above high school level, and was never a coordinator in the NFL. So, this was a huge opportunity for him, but at the same time, there was a very short leash in terms of being able to coach. And I see you smiling, you know where I'm
Yeah,
going with
here we
this.
go, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go.
I
Go
feel
ahead.
a weird parallel to a certain basketball team that Mr. Spills is a huge fan of, that
Is
starts with
currently
the
sixth place in the West, though. They're
with
currently
our
they're sixth
Los
place in the
Angeles
West.
Lakers and
But
JJ
that's a little
Redick.
different. That's a little different. Again, he has a superstar that he can count on. He can say, "Hey, LeBron, go out and do
Former
a windmill
player,
dunk on
no
somebody.
prior coaching
Windmill
experience.
dunk on somebody." There's no LeBron on the Raiders. There's
The
no
writing
LeBron on
may
the
be on the
Raiders.
wall after this
Yeah.
season. I don't know.
I don't
Uh,
know. They're sixth in the West right now. We are not even in the play-in right now, ladies and gentlemen.
but
So
it's
I
also
don't know.
the LA Lakers, and those expectations are pretty lofty. So I don't know. I don't know, man. But I just found that kind of funny, that little parallel. I was like, I'm feeling a little bit of deja vu here of a former player that's also coaching and is out, is ousted after one season, but we'll see.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
But did you have any other, final thoughts regarding Pierce before we, move on to film and TV?
Again, ladies and gentlemen, as a Commander faithful, usually I was actually telling my friends in the group chat this week. I was like, "Dad, they firing all these coaches, and my coach still got a job. I would have never thought we'd still have a coach with a job this late in the year. That's usually not what happens for us. So, unfortunately for those guys. But shout out to the Doug Peterson and Antonio Pierce. Sad to see him go, but
Yeah.
you got to
I
win
mean,
those games.
it's never fun to see folks in sports losing their job, or in any given industry losing their job. But I mean, as you said, it is the nature of the business. It Sports is very much a sport where it's what have you done for me lately? I mean, every once in a while you'll have those instances where you can kind of ride the pedigree that you've established for yourself, but only but for so long, as was the case with Pederson, of being provided 3 seasons versus just the 1 season for Pierce. But that's going to do it for what we have with our sports cooler talk. We're going to switch gears over into film and TV because I wanted to briefly talk about the Golden Globe results that we had last week. Of course, the Golden Globes happened last Sunday at the iconic Hilton. It kicked off having a diverse set of or a diverse group of projects winning, not only on the film side, but also on the television side. When we're talking about the film side, movies such as The Brutalist and Amelia Perez were awarded with more than one trip up to the stage, while in the TV category, Shogun and Baby Reindeer took home their fair share of hardware as well. But I wanted to get into individually some of the overall wins that were notable. I wanted to talk first about Brazilian actress Fernanda Torres, a star of foreign language film I'm Still Here. She won Best Actress uh, in a drama, and this happened 25 years after her mother's nomination at the awards. She beat out Angelina Jolie, Tilda Swinton, and more. And in her speech, she paid tribute to her mother, Fernanda Montenegro, a fellow Brazilian actress who appeared in 1999's Central Station. We had, and I apologize if I'm butchering the name here, but we had Anna Asawe, who won Best Performance by Female Actor in a television series drama for her role as Toda Mariko in the series Shogun. This came after her first ever nomination in the category. Her first ever nomination in the category, that being at the Golden Globes, and also follows her history-making win at the 2024 Emmy Awards as the first woman of Asian descent to win Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series. We also had Sebastian Stan, from the MCU, won Best Performance by Male Actor in a Motion Picture, Music, or Comedy for his film A Different Man. He was seen celebrating with his fellow Falcon and Winter Soldier co-star Anthony Mackie for the win. And continuing onward, if we're talking about the MCU as well, we had Shogun's Tandanabu Asano. He took home the trophy for Best Performance by a Male Actor in a Supporting Role in a TV Series at the Golden Globes. And if the name doesn't sound familiar, he was a member of the Warriors 3 as Hogun in the Thor franchise within the MCU. He earned the win after his first ever Golden Globe nomination. So not only being winning the first time, but also being nominated the first time, but winning for the first time. Of course, we had Demi Moore. She won her first ever Golden Globe, even though she, previously had been nominated in the past. It had been years, since she had been nominated, because she had previously been nominated for 1990's Ghost and 1996 TV movie If These Walls Could Talk. Colin Farrell, almost done, guys. Like I said, I wanted to keep it brief. We had Colin Farrell. He won at the Golden Globes, taking home the trophy for Best Male Actor in a Limited or Anthology Series, of course, for his role as the Penguin. This was his third ever Golden Globe, and he joins two other actors. Speaking of comic book adaptation, he joins two other actors who have won Golden Globes for playing comic book villains, both of whom are DC villains, that being Ledger and Phoenix. We had Hiroyuki Sanada, who earned the trophy uh, at the Golden Globes for Best Performance by a Male Actor in a Television Series Drama this year. He was it was a first time he was a first time nominee in the category at the Golden Globes. However, he made history at the 2024 Emmy Awards, taking the prize for Best Actor in a Drama, making history as the first Japanese actor to do so. And lastly, we had Zoe Zeldana, also from the that we know from the MCU, of course, in the Guardians of the Galaxy films, as well as in I'm brain farting. Spillman, help me out here. I should know this with the James Cameron film. I can't believe I'm brain farting on this right now.
Avatar.
Avatar. Thank you, sir. And was extremely, she won her first Golden Globe for best performance by a female actor in a supporting role for the motion picture Amelia Perez. So all of that mouthful there, Spillman, of history being made. We had some, recognizable faces, those that have were first time nominees, and those that had a hiatus of sorts, but had returned to win the award. What were your thoughts on the results?
I think that obviously there were a lot of big winners. I was really happy to see some of the winners. Surprisingly, Colin Farrell did take it home this year. We did have a big issue. We had a bit of a tete-a-tete when we were talking about the nominees a couple of weeks
But I
ago.
had Colin winning.
You
I
were
will
right. You were
mention
right. I will give you that. You were right about that. I was surprised he won for Penguin. I felt like Penguin was a great show, but I felt like the comic book genre, because it's the westerns of today, I felt like it may have been because they did take a different lean on the show. So I do understand that. My show, that the show that I told you was going to win for the best fem not best female, but best female supporting, where is
yes,
this, was Baby Reindeer. What is this
yes,
lady's
yes.
name? Oh yeah. I don't know if you've checked that show out, but it
I
is.
know you recommended it. I know you, and
Also
it's
Hacks
in my
won.
queue. I promise it's in my queue.
Yeah,
I
yeah, that's a
promise.
great one. That's a great one. And then also, it was the best limit. Baby Reindeer won for best limited series, which I
Yes.
told you was going to win. I was like, hey, this story was on the news. And when you get a story on the news, it's the zeitgeist. And then the best performer, she won. We got Jodie Foster that won.
Yes.
Oh, this is her name, Jessica Gunning. Jessica Gunning won for playing Martha on that show. And
Mhm.
as far as villains go, Martha's up there with like Kathy Bates in Misery on that
And I
show.
found
She
it
was.
fitting. Speaking of that, you see who presented her the award, correct? Like
I didn't. Was it Kathy Bates
I
herself?
believe it was Kathy Bates that
Yeah,
actually,
yeah.
which is
And
fitting.
I feel like when
Which is
Kathy
fitting.
Bates was on that screen, you was like, "Oh yeah, she gonna win," because she was doing stuff like on that movie Misery, like the scene on Misery where they hit him with the thing, but she never did anything that violent. But the way that she disrupted the main character on Baby Reindeer's life was, it was totally unnerving and crazy. Then we also had the winner from Jodie Foster picked up one for a limited series win as the lead performer
Yeah, so
in
I'm
True
looking at it now.
Detective.
Best supporting presents best supporting actor award. Yeah, yeah, best supporting actor award for television. Yep. Hmm.
So I feel like Shogun was a big winner because that was a great show.
Which I
Again,
knew. I had a
it's a
feeling that it was.
period piece. Period pieces do well in these kind of things because the costumes and stuff, people get really immersed in those. So to me, I think all the winners that we kind of were leaning on
There were
won.
a couple of surprises in there because I didn't have. I'll be honest. I didn't have. And just rewinding slightly with some of the winners is I did not have for Fernanda Torres winning. Um,
Mm.
I'm happy that she was able to win. Is nothing against Miss Torres. Uh, I'm happy that she was able to earn the Golden Globe. I just didn't have her winning. So I'm
Hmm.
happy to see that, especially considering the history of, her mother being there and nominated 25 years ago. That's pretty insane. When you're just
Yeah.
talking about just history in and of itself. And also, it's insane to realize that 1999 was 25 years ago. I
I
feel
mean,
old. Like, I
it
remember
was
1999. So
like
that's
real
really
bad,
weird.
like
Oh
real bad.
man. Yeah. So because I
That
was
was
like,
very good. That was
yeah, I'm
very
like,
good.
gosh, that was over 25 years ago. Jeez. So
Yeah.
well,
They
26
even
now.
make the year. They
26.
even make the
I make
year
us feel
easy to
older.
remember. That's
26.
right.
We're in
That's even
2020,
older.
2025, 26. So but congratulations to all the winners. So happy to see Demi Moore win, and her sharing that story of how she was kind of pigeonholed as someone who was not, a credible, was considered more of a, I think she coined it or quoted it as a popcorn actress versus someone who had substantial talents as an actress. I've always admired, her body of work and what she's been able to accomplish with the variety of roles that she's done. So I'm glad that she's finally getting, her roses, with this win. And I'm also glad to see, based on the nature of what the substance film is, because it is a horror film. It's a body horror film if we're really trying to get specific as a subgenre of the horror genre. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, it is a horror film, and to have that film, the work of folks in that film recognized was great to see. Because in a similar way that you have with the superhero genre, um, I feel like that's a genre that doesn't always get a lot of its credit. Maybe with its special effects, but not always with its performances. Um, so the more that I see of that when we're talking about genre related nominations for genre related fare like that is always great to see. The reason why I was going to say, and I'll close it off with this, why I did pick Colin Farrell is because I knew of that previous pedigree. And if anything had an opportunity of being able to win as a comic adaptation,
Yeah.
it would be in the world of DC Comics, based on what they've been able to accomplish prior with their nominations and folks winning. So we still have yet to see that with Marvel. So fingers crossed that we're, able to cross that threshold. That's one thing I feel like DC has over Marvel, is that, they've been able to get a lot of critical acclaim, with their performances, even though I feel like you have performances in Marvel that are just as impressive. It's just that they just haven't been nominated. But we'll see. Time will tell. Um, so that's going to wrap up of what we had with the film and TV talk. That takes us over to our main topic, which was what you see here in the background with CES, with the Consumer Electronics Show. Uh,
Robot noises.
right. But yes, with the Consumer Electronics Show, which happened in Vegas. And if you aren't familiar with the Consumer Electronics Show, it's owned and produced by the Consumer Technology Association, CTA. And it's the only trade show that showcases the entire tech landscape at one event. And when I say entire, I really do mean entire, in terms of every industry that you can think of. It's hosted in Las Vegas every January and showcases companies including manufacturers, developers, and suppliers of consumer technology hardware, content, technology, delivery systems, and more. It also includes a conference program where the world's business leaders and pioneering thinkers address the industry's most relevant issues. This year, the show took place from January 7th to January 10th, with media days, which I was, able to take advantage of. Media days that occurred between January 5th and 6th. There were quite a few things to see, Spillman, but I'll punt it over to you. I know you haven't had a chance to be at the show, but did you have any questions before I really dive into, some of the sights and sounds of what happened?
Well, I always am interested in the Consumer Electronics Show. There's always cool things that they've got. Clearly, you've got the Apple Vision Pro as the background here. So I imagine you might have tried this out. Did you try out the Apple Vision?
I can't say that I tried out the Apple Vision, but I will say this. So Just going over my week. Some of the episodes or some of the folks that I had a chance to speak to, you can check out in our content here on this page with Facebook and with YouTube. Some live streams that happen. There's still more that's on the way that I still need to edit through content wise and post for you guys. But um, just teasing through a lot of the things. We had the robotic Labrador known as Jenny, that from what you saw in the episode that I posted at that live stream is basically a device, a robotic pet companion, if you will, that's for seniors who may be suffering from dementia or any other degenerative disease. However, it has other applications too for anyone who suffers from any mental ailments. It could not only be limited to those who are seniors, but also just adults or kids who suffer from any mental ailment or issue. So that was interesting to see. We also had the flow device that you have, which is essentially a device that you're able to use to prevent floods, which now that I'm back home, probably is going to be something that would be productive to have, considering that whenever you're dealing with snow, anyone who is accustomed to snowy weather knows that eventually at some point it is going to melt, and when it does melt, there is a potential for flooding that could happen. So there's that. There's also a app known as Own that I discussed with one of the minds behind that app, Katia, who was discussing that platform, how it could be useful for content creators, because so oftentimes when we're talking about different platforms, whether we're talking about Facebook, whether we're talking about YouTube, it, there is an opportunity there, right, where content creators are able to monetize. However, it it always seems like they are getting a very small piece of that pie in terms of what that split is, and so Own is providing a better is going to be providing a better opportunity for content creators to be able to further monetize the content they produce, even more so than the standard or the common platforms that are out there. Um, Another one which I still have yet to post to you guys is also a smart compactor that allows you to use the device not only as a disposal system for any trash that you have, but it turns that whatever you dispose of as waste into compost that is usable as soil to for planting. So that way it's something that is you're being able to reuse that waste in such a way that can help further that cycle that we have when it comes to our produce and being able to help grow that produce. So I mean, there were a lot of great things. There were some robots there. I still have yet to post that too. Some robots that could remember your name after having conversations with them from the day before. There were robots there that could walk over to you and shake your hand. Yeah, it was a bunch of crazy, insane things there. And then add to that, of course, you had some awesome parties as well, that you were able to converse with other minds behind a lot of these startups and companies, and talking about some of the products that they have. So CES is always fun. I always look forward to it. Outside of perhaps San Diego Comic-Con, it's always one of the big markers or the big things that I have to look forward to in a given year. So
Yeah. So, aside from these things, did you see anything? Because I know is there any goofball things that you saw where you were like, y'all really selling this? Because I feel like when you go to something that big, you would definitely. I feel like you got to bring out the weird.
okay, I'm trying to think if there was one. I can't say off the top of. off the top of my head that there was anything that was like weird, because most of the time I was very focused in terms of what it was that I was um what I was covering. Because if you don't really have that focused mindset of what you are going to cover, you could
You
kind
get
of get
lost.
overwhelmed with
Yeah.
all the stuff that's there. So I can't really say that. What I will say is that there were surprises of things that I didn't initially have on my radar to cover, but just because I just happened across it, it was something that was really cool. There was and then I did actually sit down with the person and ended up doing an interview with them, which I'll post. Is there is a device known as the hedgehog dryer, which allows you to be able to air out, your shoes. So I mean, me and you spill, we are very well versed with being athletes, that
Get
those
funky.
shoes be humming, especially after being active, playing basketball, playing whatever, being active in any type of way. So a lot of times, what is the normal thing that is the normal custom, right? We will leave the shoes outside the door and allow them to air out. That's the standard custom, right? But this device allows you to be able to place the shoes on the arms of the device, and each of those arms actually act as a fuming system that allows you to air out those said shoes. So it not only serves that purpose of being able to act as a rack for your shoes, but also airs out your shoes at the same time, which is great because apparently it's a device that or a product that was initially used. This is what the creator was telling me. It was a device that was initially used as with with hockey players, because
Mm,
they wanted to use it as a way to be able to dry out clothes, because their outfits had a tendency to be wet all the time, especially being on the ice, falling on the ice, all of that stuff. And
hmm.
eventually they were able to expand the applications of that to other things. So yeah, that would be one thing that I would say that was a surprise that wasn't initially on my radar, but I'm happy that I was able to come across it. That happens sometimes,
Oh
just
yeah.
as you're going from point A to point B of going to a certain destination, you just come across something that catches your eye, and that was one of them. So I think I lost you there for a second, Spillman. Hold on. I don't know if you're still there. There you are. Okay. Lost you there again for a moment. Um, so I was
Calling from my
There
son.
we go.
Sorry about that, ladies and
Okay,
gentlemen.
no
Sorry
problem,
about
no
that.
problem. I thought you were having a tech thing, but yeah, no. Like I
Mm-mm.
said, there were a lot of fascinating, interesting things. There always is. Um, and as I said, it wasn't anything that was like disappointing per se, because it's hard to really find something like that at the show, because oftentimes I really have to focus things. I would say more so that there were things that were surprises that
I'll call you right back.
yeah, sure thing. There were things that were gotcha. There were things that were surprises
Yeah.
that I didn't initially have on radar to check out, but I did have an opportunity to see, which I'm happy that I was.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So that's cool. That's cool. I think that, the shoes be humming, especially if you take them and you put them in that trunk of your
yeah,
car. You're like, all right, it's Sunday. I went out to play on
right,
Sunday. Then you go back to that car
right.
Wednesday. You're like, all right, we're gonna get an
Especially
open
during the
gym on
summer.
Wednesday. Open that.
Especially during the summer.
Ooh,
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
ooh.
hear you.
Yeah,
I
for
hear you.
sure.
But that's gonna do it for this week in pop culture. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. But before we go, I'm gonna punt it over to Spillman. Can you tell folks where they can find you, sir?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you can always find me on Instagram at Truly Spill. Instagram is not gonna close on the 19th. There's certain social media sites that I like to look at, but I will not share on here, that are going to close in a couple of days,
Oh
because,
man.
they're doing things that they don't like over there. So, Find me there. We could talk about stuff. Maybe we could talk about the death of that social media site that's not going to be open no more. So,
Oh man,
we could get there. So, don't forget to like and subscribe to the show.
absolutely.
I'm not getting my special effects. There we
There
go.
we
We got a
go.
heart
There
there.
you go.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, I'll punt it back over to you, Brandon.
All right. But yes, want to thank Spillman as always for being the co-host for this week in pop culture. I again am your host, Brandon Choi, co-creator of Movies and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT, which you see down below on X, and Brandon Choi underscore ENT on Instagram. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and